Some situations may or may not even exist. They're imagined. But the stress is real. You ever worry about something that hasn't even happened? Man, I sure have. Your mind played the whole movie. The bad outcome, the conflict, the rejection, the disappointment, the failure, the what if, the worst case scenario. It's not real, but it still drains you. Man, I have played whole situations with both sides dialogue in my head. And that's the danger of imagined situations. The things you fear in your mind can create real stress in your body because your mind doesn't know the difference, okay? Welcome to the Shattered Mindset Podcast. Wisdom from life's turning points and defining moments.
This episode is being brought to you by the fine people of Wolfgang Bakery and Grooming in Marietta, Georgia.
Hey, if your furry friend is overdue for a spa day, let me put you on to Wolfgang Bakery and Grooming right here in Marietta. These folks do it all, full grooms to coloring, whatever your pet needs to look fresh. Their expert groomers are true pros, and they take great care of every pet that walks through the door. They've got your pet style covered. Now, here's a part you'll love. As a special offer for new customers, your first full groom or mini groom on pets 40 pounds or less is just $75. That's a strong offer to get and keep your pet looking right. You can call them at 470-523-8068. That's 470-523-8068 to schedule, or stop by 2500 Dallas Highway, Suite 540, Marietta, Georgia. And when you go, make sure you mention Shattered Mindset Podcast, all right? Or use the code mindset/Wolfgang so they know you came from this podcast. Wolfgang Bakery and Grooming, Marietta. Hey, listen. I want to ease your shoulders for just a second. We've been talking about some things on a few episodes, but look, take a breath. Let me get you to have the noise to just ease a little bit from the week and from all of the things we've been talking about, because today we're talking about something that quietly influences almost everything you deal with at work, at home, in relationships, in your emotions, even in how you see yourself. We're talking about the difference between a problem and a situation. And listen, if you think that sounds too simple, stay with me, because this distinction is one of the reasons that you lose sleep or stress too hard or react too quickly or feel heavier than you should feel. Maybe even get pulled emotionally into things that don't even deserve that level of energy. A lot of what you're carrying isn't actually a problem, it's a situation. Look, you're walking through the situation, and situations require a different version of you than a problem. My goal today isn't to teach you, it's to help you see differently, because when you see differently, you move differently. So let's get into this. Let's talk about how your words shape the weight you carry. You ever notice how just using the word problem tightens your whole body? Soon as you say it, problem, your chest tightens. Look, your thoughts speed up. Your patience shortens. And that word just triggers something in you, something primal, something protective. But when you label something as a situation, it hits you differently. A situation says, life is happening. Now let me figure out my next step. Not everything that lands in your life is broken. Not everything needs a fix. Some things, good and bad, need understanding, maybe patience and time or wisdom, not immediate reaction. I'm telling you, when you mislabel a situation as a problem, it affects how you breathe, how you think, how you make decisions, and how much hope you give yourself. Let me show you exactly what I mean. Let's share something real, something personal and recent even. Okay. Look, recently my sister passed away, and that was a situation, heartbreaking, irreversible moment. None of us could stop or even change it. And the immediate responsibilities, it didn't fall on me. They fell on her husband and her adult daughter. They carried that part. But I still had my own emotional ground to stand on, my own grief to process, my own space to hold for the people I love, my own heart to steady. And look, this wasn't a one time moment. Over the last 18 months, I buried two sisters. I lost one of my best friends. And in that same stretch, my wife lost her sister and her cousin. That's a lot of love to lose in a short period of time. That's a lot of life shifting at once. That's a lot of emotional ground to cover. And when you're in seasons like that, look, it's easy for life to start feeling like one long emergency. But here's what all that loss taught me. Those people, those relationships, those moments of saying goodbye, those were situations, painful, sacred, deeply personal situations that required honesty, mourning, reflection, and presence. The grief that followed, that was something I had to walk through. The emotion, that sacrifice, that unexpected times, the waves that hit when you're quiet, the responsibilities of showing up for others, those were the problems inside the situation. Not problems to fix, but problems to navigate. And I had to recognize something important. Grief wasn't the problem. Loss wasn't the problem. Those were the realities of life that I couldn't control. But if I had stopped living, if I had shut down, if I had stopped working, stopped creating, stopped recording, if I had stopped showing up for people, stopped being who God created me to be, that's where the situation could really have turned into a problem. Not because the grief wasn't real. It was. It is. And not because the losses weren't heavy. They are. But because surrendering my purpose would have created a new wound on top of the ones already there. Taking time to mourn was right. Taking time to honor them was necessary. Taking time to slow down, reflect, pray, and support my family was honorable. But letting the situation stop my life, letting it steal my calling, letting it shut down my voice, that would have become the real problem. Think about that for yourself. Grief requires stillness, but it doesn't require surrender. And that's the difference between a situation and a problem. Now let's walk deeper into this idea without turning it into a lecture, okay? Think about this. Traffic, situation. A teenager's decisions, oh, situation. A coworker's attitude, a situation. Unexpected expenses, usually situations with problems inside them. Arguments, well, often situations loaded with emotions, assumptions, and timing, and we can allow them to turn into problems. Look, see, the situation is what happened. The problem is what you have to do in response to what happened. Mix those two up, and everything feels heavier than it needs to. But there's a reason situations feel heavier. It's the story you attach. Let me talk to you directly here. Most of the stress you feel doesn't come from the situation itself, it comes from the story your mind adds. Like, this always happens to me. Okay, you've heard somebody say that? I don't have time for this. Okay, this is gonna knock everything off. It's just gonna mess everything up. And people just don't value me. People say stuff. I'm tired of this, right? It's not gonna work out anyway. This is just my life now. People say stuff. Look, those stories can turn a moment into a mountain. That's why I say the weight of a situation is often determined by the story we tell ourselves about it. And until you separate the situation from the story, you'll keep reliving moments that don't deserve that much emotional rent. Here's a story that shows how easily we mislabel things. Look, I want to talk with the young man who believed he wasn't being hired because of his race. Now, let's be real. Bias exists, racism exists. People judge without knowing. But what struck me wasn't the possibility of bias, it was the certainty he carried. He had given all his power to something he couldn't control and none to the things he could. His situation might have included bias, absolutely possible. But the problems inside that situation were still his preparation, his presence, his confidence, his belief in himself, his interpretation of the moment. When you give the situation too much power, the problem becomes your mindset, not the moment. Some situations may or may not even exist, they're imagined, but the stress is real. You ever worry about something that hasn't even happened? Man, I sure have. Your mind played the whole movie. The bad outcome, the conflict, the rejection, the disappointment, the failure, the what if, the worst case scenario. It's not real, but it still drains you. Man, I have played whole situations with both sides dialogue in my head. And that's the danger of imagined situations. The things you fear in your mind can create real stress in your body because your mind doesn't know the difference, okay? Most of what we worry about never actually happens, but we pay the price anyway. And that's where the situation becomes a problem inside your thinking. Now, let's shift from reflection to something practical that helps you breathe, helps you see it clearly, that helps you to separate fear from facts and respond with intention instead of reaction. This is where the SIFT process, SIFT process, I came up with. It, it really naturally connects with this. All right, let me just walk you into the SIFT, the way you really use it in real life. When something hits your life, first, see. See it for what it is. Name it honestly. Identify what's yours to control. You don't need to carry what isn't yours. Look, focus your energy where it counts. Direct your strength, don't scatter it. Take intentional action or intentional acceptance. Wisdom knows which is needed. That's the SIFT process. This alone keeps a situation from growing into a problem. But you know me, I like to take things deeper, okay? And so here's a 5 step process to keep a situation from becoming a problem. Now, this is the bridge between understanding and application. Use this anytime life hits you unexpectedly. All right. So let's walk this slowly. Step 1, pause before you react. Your first reaction is emotional. Your second reaction is honest. Your third reaction is wise. Give wisdom room to speak. Step 2, ask, is this a situation or a problem? A situation needs understanding. A problem needs action. This one question changes everything. Step 3, separate the facts from the story. Facts, what was said, what happened, what you saw. Story, what you decided it meant. Most of the stress, it really lives in the story, not the situation. Step 4, identify your leverage. What can I control? Listen, you have more power in this moment than you think. You have power in the step you take next, power in your tone, power in how you show up, and power in the meaning you give to what's happening. You may not control the situation, but you do control how you respond. And that response can shift everything. All of that belongs to you. All of that is within your control. And none of that depends on anyone else's behavior. Step 5, choose one aligned action or release it. Just one step, one decision, one movement, one shift, or one release. Because clarity can come through action, but sometimes clarity comes through surrender. Peace doesn't come from control, peace comes from clarity. Hey, look, this may be watched or listened to by a number of people, but let me talk to you personally for a moment, okay? You're carrying something. Now, I'm sure of it. Maybe it's work, maybe it's money, maybe it's your health, your family, your purpose, the weight of trying to keep it together for everyone else, or maybe it's that quiet heaviness inside, the kind you can't even fully name, let alone talk about. I want you to hear this clearly. Not everything you are facing is a crisis, even when it seems like it. Not everything important requires emergency energy. Some of what you're walking through is simply life happening, and you're growing through it. You're not failing, you're navigating. You're not behind, you're still evolving. You say late in life, yeah, but you're still evolving, okay? But look, before we wrap up this moment, don't rush, reflect. Ask yourself, what am I calling a problem that might just be a situation? What part of this belongs to me? What part doesn't? Where am I reacting instead of responding? And what's one aligned step I can take this week? You don't need every answer right now. You just need some clarity. Life will continue to hand you moments you didn't ask for. It's going to happen. And moments you didn't expect or even choose. But every time something lands in your world, you get to decide. Is this a situation I need to accept or a problem I need to address? When you know the difference, everything shifts. Your energy, your peace, your clarity, your confidence, your decisions, and eventually your entire life. Look, I got to go, but until the next time, keep adapting, keep evolving, keep reaching for those higher horizons. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. Take care, take charge. God bless.